Predictable revenue is waiting for you. Hello, my friends, and welcome to the 231st episode of the Sales Podcast. I'm Wes Schaefer, the Sales Whisperer, your host. If you missed last week, check out the storytelling MD, Michael Davis. He will help you breathe life into your presentations. If you are not speaking one-to-many, you on a webinar, you at a keynote talk, you leading breakout sessions, then you are leaving money on the table. And Michael talks about how to turn that around, how to weave in stories to capture and stimulate and motivate your attendees. And when you do that, they are much more likely to take your advice, to follow your recommendations, which is to buy something from you. Right? You need to get over the concept of feeling bad that you have something to offer somebody when you speak. And trust me, this took me a long time to personalize and internalize as well. But I heard it from none other than Zig Ziglar. He talked about when he shows up to speak somewhere, he may motivate you for an hour or half a day or even a couple of days. But as soon as you leave, that all starts to diminish rapidly. I mean, within 72 hours, they say you forget somewhere between 70 to 90% of what you heard. And so his goal was always to get you to invest in his CDs and books and workbooks and books, because then you could reiterate and reinforce what you learned. So telling stories is key to making that happen. So go back and check out thesaleswhisperer.com/session 230 to get the notes and to listen to that episode with Michael. Today we've got Marylou Tyler. She's the author of a couple of books, Predictable Revenue and Predictable Prospecting. She brings 28 years of experience to this field. She knows her stuff, so you're in for a treat. But before I get into that, I wanted to reiterate the story that we as human beings, we as entrepreneurs are living lives of quiet desperation. And yet it's in your control to turn that around. I've mentioned that I just started Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And as I make this recording, I am sore as all get out. I've been doing this for a couple of weeks, but I had to miss a few days after my first two lessons. But I've been going now. I'm recording this on a Friday, so I went Saturday, I went Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I went last night in the evening for 2 sessions. So it's I am beat up. I am sore. I am bruised. I did a Facebook Live video from the training room 2 days ago. So if you want to see me with my shirt off, go find me on Facebook, and you can see that video from Wednesday. But I showed that to show the bruises, to show the mat burns on the tops of my feet, because we're sliding and grappling, and trying to get side control and trying to pass guard to take control of our opponent. But I showed that to show how I am literally getting out of my comfort zone. I mean, I am uncomfortable. I am literally waking myself up at night when I roll over. I am so sore. My back, my lower back, my neck, my shoulders, my biceps, my knuckles are jammed. I can't wear my wedding ring right now because my left ring finger is so swollen. And you know what? I love it. Now, that may not be your shtick, but you know what? There are small people, big people, there's kids, there's young adults, there's 62-year-old men in there. You go at your own pace. Okay, so it's not like you got to get in there and mix it up like crazy. You go at your own pace, and even when you're rolling with more advanced practitioners, more advanced students, they understand that you're new, and they can dial it back or dial it up based on your resistance and what you want to learn in that class. So it really is safe despite getting after it. But the reason I bring that up is to show that I am a product of the product. I don't recommend you do something that I haven't already done and achieve success with. Okay, but we are all suffering from ADD, except it's adventure deficit disorder. Pay yourself first. In my Make Every Sale course, the very first thing we get into is time management. And time management is really self-management. But I have you pay yourself first, both literally with money. Okay, when you get a commission check, set some aside, save it for a rainy day, invest. But also paying yourself first in your life. We take your schedule and we schedule in our lives. Schedule in exercise, schedule in prayer time, schedule in dinner with the family, movies. Maybe you want to go for a run in the middle of the day, whatever. You plan all of that first, then schedule in your business. I just came back from this mastermind. I think I mentioned it as well, out in Tampa. And I'm joining this group, and it's a high-dollar, powerful group. I mean, Kevin Harrington from Shark Tank is in this group. That's the type of people I'm hanging out with. But so many of the people that spoke, these successful entrepreneurs, shared how they had hit rock bottom before they turned things around and made it rock solid. But they all put in pictures of their families, their kids, their spouses, maybe on their second spouse. A lot of them have endured divorce before they found clarity, right? So now they're doing things for the right reasons, but how come they didn't know ahead of time? And I think it's because they weren't paying themselves first. After that hard time, after they hit rock bottom with the divorce, losing the kids, losing their houses, what have you, then they got clarity. I want you to get clarity now, before you hit rock bottom. That's why you're going to hear me talking a lot more, narrowing my focus on the Make Every Sale course. I've lowered the price. I've created a payment plan, but it's lifetime access. And it is 1/20th the cost of the mastermind I'm joining for just 1 year. Okay, but you're going to get lifetime access. There's group calls. There's over 3 dozen videos so far. There's 60, almost 70-page workbook. There's a ton of assets. There's group calls. There's real-time interaction on the group. And again, these are the things that I have done to grow my own business, both in the past when I was an employee, as an entrepreneur, as a business owner now. These are things that have worked. These are things that are working now. That's what you get in the group. It's going to help you focus, narrow your focus, buckle in, buckle down, and make more sales. Okay? So head over now, makeeverysale.com. Let me know what you think. Go ahead and join. If you have questions, you can contact me on the Contact Us page on the saleswhisperer.com. You'll get a link to schedule a free 15-minute private consultation, and we'll see if it's right for you. Okay? But one thing I do know is right for everybody is our next guest. So let's bring her on. Marylou Tyler. I am predicting this will be a fantastic interview. Author of Predictable Revenue and Predictable Prospecting. Welcome to the Sales Podcast. How the heck are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for inviting me on.
So before I hit record, you were telling me how you have mastered by location. You live simultaneously in Des Moines and Huntington Beach. Can you tell us how you do that before we do anything else?
Very simple. 1 quarter on, 1 quarter off. The summers are in Huntington Beach because there's too many wasps here in Des Moines, and the winters are in Huntington Beach because my husband does not like the cold.
Too many wasps. Growing up as a kid, I could tell you stories, the things that I did. But I'll tell you one story though. I was not a kid. I was an adult. Well, I don't know if I was an adult. I was old enough that people would call me adults, like if I was arrested, but I wasn't arrested. Golly, I was, I don't know, my early 30s, had a few kids, had a 1-story house in Austin. Something wasn't working right, like venting. I climb up on the roof. My 3 young kids are down watching me. And as I lift this vent off, the sheet metal, like hooded little vent, keep the rain from coming in, but it was still open. I look at it, and it is the reason it's not venting is because there's a huge wasp nest. I mean, like it's big around just about as big around as a basketball, at least, the diameter. And yeah. I'm face to face with it. And all I remember is like kids are to the left, throw it to the right and run. And
exactly.
I throw it and I run, get in the house, and not one of them got me.
Wow.
I mean,
that's amazing.
I probably should be dead, right? I'm holding a wasp nest at arm's length at my face. So, well. That's why I hire people to do things like that now.
Yeah.
But I digress. So, hey, thanks for coming on the show. You are a prolific author. You've got a nice-looking website. But for our listeners that do not know who you are, after I put them in timeout, could you please just give us a little thumbnail sketch about who you are and what you do? And I say, like, we'll dive down the rabbit hole.
Sure. I am a sales enablement specialist, and I really work at the top of the funnel. So starting conversations with people we don't know and getting them to a qualified opportunity. So we can hand off a great lead to someone else who's going to close it. Typically, I specialize with companies who have the separation of roles, but not everybody does. So I've been doing this now for probably 29 years, specializing it before we had the internet. So that's how long I've been at it.
Oops, I had mute on. Before the internet? Goodness gracious. 28 years? What is going on here? All right. So I like to play devil's advocate because my listeners will say immediately, well, that's not me. I'm a solopreneur. I'm a small business. My people have to eat what they kill. So let me go ahead and tune out and go check Instagram. And you say what?
And I say that probably it's an eye opener for me, but over 70% of the people who subscribe to my list, who've taken my classes, do all roles. So is that
prospect 7% or 70%?
70. I just did a survey of my. I know. Even though the books are talking about specialize as soon as you can, the reality is a lot of my clients do all roles. I do all roles. Okay. I prospect, I close, I service. But in the ideal team situation, if we're looking at large sales teams, it does make sense as soon as you can to specialize. But what I'm teaching you is how to be really, really good at top of funnel. That's my area of expertise.
All right. So I'm a big fan of sorting, sifting, and separating. I like to say choose who to lose versus try to convince anyone that can fog a mirror. What is your approach on that top of funnel qualification?
We spend a lot of time working through who our ideal account or customer profiles are. And what that means essentially is if you look at a matrix or a box, you want to get in that top right corner of the box, which is the highest profitability that you can get, the highest likelihood of closing. Those are the people you want to spend most of your time on. The rest of it, you can leverage technology now and use automation to kind of warm up the chill, but you don't want to spend your precious time, which we don't have a lot of, with people who are not going to have a high lifetime value for you and a lot of revenue.
So I spend a lot of time in the technology space, but I do work with people who are like, I got to make a sale right now, while the technology kicks in. So I've had quite a few people on, especially in the B2B space, that are still fans of the phone. Do you get into phone sales? Does cold calling still work in a B2B environment?
Yes, I'm a proponent of the phone, and I came up through the phone ranks because before the internet and email, that's what we did. We had the telephone, and we had direct mail. So that's how aged I am in terms of lead generation.
For our listeners, direct mail, it's the paper, like, the person in the blue, like the light blue and white, and they walk up to your house, or that box down at the end of the cul-de-sac. That's a physical mail box. Okay. All right. So as you were saying?
And postcards. And we still use postcards today, just for your audience. But yes, what we do now is, since we're smarter with more tools in our toolkit, we use email, phone, direct mail, postcards, texting, whatever we need to kind of warm up that chill so that when we do have a phone conversation, it's meaningful in nature. So the difference between now and then is that you have a lot of tools that in your arsenal where you can leverage the conversation and get people bubbling up to the point where a telephone call can close that deal.
I mean, I don't know really how good you are because, I mean, we've been talking for like minutes and you haven't even mentioned Instagram. I mean, come on. Come on.
I have an Instagram channel, everybody. Yeah. Where I put all my inspirational quotes out there. But, all those things, it's really about leveraging your brand, who you are, why you matter, how you help people. And if the more levers you can pull and the more channels that you're on, people will have more comfort with you. And that's implied trust. And it helps you build rapport before you get on the phone. So you're not really cold when you're doing all of that. You're warming them up.
So how does someone create this box? How do we know, based on using the internet, I don't know, Forbes, I mean, whatever, how do we know, looking at the landscape, who is in that top right? How do we really know who is likely to buy and has the money, right? I mean, that's... I don't know. Can you demystify some of the magic there?
If you're someone who has clients, then you work it backwards. You look at the people with whom you've had a really great sales process and buying cycle for them, who are great clients that you love working with, and you take a group of those people and you model them. What are their likes? What is their day in the life like? What do they do for a living? What do they do in their personal lives? What got them to you in the first place? What pain did they say resonated to them? And how did you solve that? So you're working backwards from your ideal client up to what they look like. And then you have this avatar, you have this sort of persona definition of who these people are.
Right.
And then you go out and you find like people. Now with the internet, there's a lot of search ways you can do your research. You can go on message boards. You can look at it, like in my world, we can go on Amazon and do a search of all the people that have written books on the topics that we sell, and then go to forums, go to group discussions and read what their pain points are. And then you're looking for people who are actually putting in those descriptions. And then from there, you can reverse engineer it and find what roles they are or what titles they have, or what demographics are surrounding them. And then from there, you're starting to develop a list of people with similar qualities.
So tell me that again. You look at people that have written books similar to yours, and then you look at people that have written reviews or made comments on those books?
Yeah, that's one way. Amazon is a great resource, especially if you're looking at reviews. If you have topics or services or products that books are written about or coincide with or correlate to. And then I also take it from there. That's Amazon. That's one search engine. YouTube is another search engine. LinkedIn is a third search engine. Then you have all of the groups. You have forum discussions. If you do your pain point space forum or pain point space discussion group, you'll find a lot of intel that you can use in seeing who's putting in these discussions and what role they play.
Okay, so somebody wrote a review. Let's say I wrote a review of somebody similar. Can you look me up? I mean, is all my info there, and you can say, "Oh, hey, Wes Schaefer, the Sales Whisperer." You can just go look at my website, and you reach out to me like as a potential prospect, or what?
Well, that's one way you could do it, or you can mine from different sources people like you. And then there are services that allow you.
There ain't nobody like me.
And then you could there are a lot of tools out there that you can use to get information relative to the profile. And then depending on what you sell, then, if you're going to be able to buy a list, or you're going to be able to farm a list, or hire a service that gets the list for you, that really depends on what market you're selling into.
Now, are you doing that research just to create the persona, or to actually reach out to me one-on-one?
You use it first to create the persona profile.
Okay.
And as an example, I did this with a client recently, and we decided there was Betty. This Betty person was the person that they felt would give them the time of day for a first conversation. Because remember, we're top of funnel. So people we meet at top of funnel may not be the same as the people who end up buying. So we found this Betty. We looked in their house list, their list of how many Bettys they had. And they had 50,000 Bettys that we could actually sell to. So we found those. We found them in LinkedIn. We went to their house list. They only had 500. So there's a disconnect there of what they had already ready to go versus what they could get.
Cool.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Now, I assume you're teaching this to your clients, but how do you, it's always that analysis paralysis, right? I don't want, I want to give my clients good advice, but I don't want them going down the rabbit hole, right? It's okay to go down a rabbit hole in an interview, not when you're trying to make sales, because I could see salespeople spending too much time on this. Oh yeah, boss, I'm working hard. I'm researching Amazon. Can they do this quickly? How much time should be allocated to this versus, getting on the phone and doing some qualifying?
Well, you mentioned that a lot of your audience does all roles. So they have to really look at their day in the life of their sales role. Now, when I was doing all three roles, which would be prospecting, closing, and servicing, I would take 2 days a week that I would use 15 to 30 minutes of the 2 days for research, what I call research. I'd actually put a timer on. Put a timer on. I do my research. When the timer went off, I was done. And the goal was always to get as many records as possible so that I can add them to my calling sequence or to my email sequence. So my goal was always to work at least 50 to 100 records. That could be 3 people per account, which if you divide 100 by 3, you have 33 new businesses that you can sell into. So I had goals like that I would work through during the week and try to meet them. Okay.
And how are you seeing things change today, if at all, versus 10 years ago or 20 years ago? I mean, what is still working today that has always worked?
The phone still works, and it's harder to get a hold of people, yes. But all that means is that you have to be more creative in figuring out what time of day would work best for you to make telephone calls. Okay. The other thing that works is to warm up that chill. Direct mail used to do that in the olden days. Now we use email. We use other types of social in order to warm up the chill by getting your name out there and becoming a thought leader in your space. Writing in a blog post, submitting it somewhere, going on a call like this and talking about why you are uniquely qualified to sell whatever it is that you're selling. And that has not changed. And everything is circling back. I mean, there's this whole big thing now about account-based selling and selling into top accounts. And, when I was in sales in the dark ages, I had 6 accounts. That was it. And I had a $2 million quota. So that was account-based selling, but we didn't call it that. It was called strategic selling or something else. So all those principles have come back around. The key thing for you to really master is listening and asking really good questions. And you can use the old textbooks for that, like spin selling and things like that, to help you to ask questions that will allow people to lean in and think, wow, they really understand me. They really know where I'm coming from. I can trust that they're going to lead me down the right path towards a solution for myself.
I ain't got no time to listen. Look, you listen here now. I'm going to tell you what to buy. Here's what you need. You need 12 of them, right? There's a discount if you buy 12. All right. No. Very nice. Now, voicemail. To leave a voicemail or to not leave a voicemail? Because you talked about, people are harder to reach. Yeah. And they're going to see your caller ID popping up. So do you just hang up? Do you leave a message? Do you leave a series of messages?
I like to blend in 3 to 4 voicemails to this touch sequence, which the data now shows, and it's always been this way, but there's data saying 10 to 12 touches for certain industries before you can actually reach somebody. So what I like to do is I like to leave voicemails, but they are strategic voicemails. And what I mean by that is that we use psychology and like cliffhangers type thing in order to be able to leave them with a problem, give them a solution, but also start to bridge to yet another problem that they probably have, and then say that you'll contact them again when the timing is right for them. So that allows you to leave something, give them a piece of information, but also have a cliffhanger. That's one way to do it. The second way is if you're selling to multiple people in one account, then you triangulate your voicemail. So what you say is, "Hi, it's John. I'm also leaving a message for Claire and Steve in your organization because I heard from so-and-so, another person in the organization, that this is a topic of interest to your team. So I'm leaving them a message as well as you to get together to discuss this particular pain point."
Ah, very nice.
Yeah.
And what have you found there? Does like the higher ranking person get back to you? Does the higher ranking person instruct the lower ranking person to get back to you? Or are they just more receptive when you finally do reach them because they know that they're not alone?
I think there's a combination of things. I think if you can leave a strategic message with the higher level leadership role, they'll probably forward the message or instruct the team to, "Hey, let's get a listen to this. It sounds like it's something that we can be using." If you do it at the peer level, then they know that they're a part of a team, that they're all looking at the same problem, and that somehow you figured out that they were looking at this problem now because you mapped into the organization and found out that this was an initiative that's important to them this year.
Right.
And you say that in your voicemail, then you're a business person having a business conversation with a team who's in need.
Right. And then are you calling up into the C-suite or are you starting lower?
When we're building those personas or those avatars we talked about before, at the same time, we're building a bullseye of people who directly and indirectly influence our intended target. So that means the C-suite is in there someplace, especially if they're direct influencers. But we're also looking at indirect people. We're going in and around trying to get our foot in the door and find out if there are any initiatives. So we're calling laterally, we're calling up, and we're calling down in order to be able to craft a compelling argument so that when we do reach our target, we have something of value to say to them.
Yeah. That's awesome. Because I've had Anthony Pernello on, selling the Vito, and I love his stuff, and I've succeeded with his stuff. But I would get my foot in the door any way that it took, right? When I was in the B2B world, including, driving around back and hanging out with the smokers because they're all hanging out and they're chill, right? The non-smokers are really getting a bum rap, right? Because they just sit at their desk and keep working. The smokers, every hour or two, they get 15 minutes to get outside, get some fresh air. I'd start poking and prodding, getting information, and I was in technology for most of my career, and I'd get my systems engineers on board and get an engineer with another engineer. Good grief. They spill more information because, they're just geeking out on the technology and just they start telling you what kind of initiatives they have, what kind of problems they have, the deadlines. Like, oh, yeah, let's write that down.
Yeah, no, it's right. That you're absolutely right. And that has not changed. The method by which we contact people may have been enhanced.
Right.
But people we're still looking in and around that bullseye. So in the center of the bullseye is your intended target, the person you think at top of funnel this is, who's going to let you in the door to have the first or follow-on conversation. The next ring out are people who directly influence him. He has his ear. And then the people out from that are the people who indirectly influence. So that would be like executive assistants. It may be the call center. It may be the sales department. It may be accounting, but there are other places you can go have conversations with people and endear yourself to them and get more information.
Right. And, when it comes to receptionists, gatekeepers, executive assistants, we're just supposed to be rude and mean to them, right? And squash them like a grape and just bulldoze over them?
Not at all. We love them. We love them because we get information. Remember, these are all successful phone calls you're having.
Right.
So, we talk about these cold calls being, just rejection after rejection. But these calls, these mapping calls, are 85 to 95% positive. So just think how much you're going to enjoy your calling day.
Oh, may I ask what this call is regarding? Is he expecting your call? Are you saying that's positive? Are you saying that's enjoyable?
Because you have practiced your responses, yes. It is very enjoyable.
Oh. Little Tom Hopkins, PDR, right? Practice, drill, rehearse.
And I love Vito. I love all these people you were talking about. So yes.
Hey, you're in good company.
Using the telephone, that is the one tool where you've got to practice, and you get better and better the longer you're on the phone. So a lot of things that I love too is this concept of block timing, where once again, that timer we talked about before for research, you do the same thing with your block time, and you make phone call after phone call until that timer goes off. And you will find that you get better and better, and you relax more, and you actually will enjoy it.
Right. Now, can I call my mom during that block time? I mean, I'm still dialing.
It has to be the list that you've prepared with your research.
Oh, you're so tough. You're right. I call it chunking time or blocking time. And, I tell the story that I was selling technology into healthcare. And that was one of my big verticals. And we sold in financial, we sold in the government, but healthcare was one I really had a lot of success with. And I remember one time I was chunking my time, right, blocking, and I was calling CIOs, directors of IT, and somebody said, "Oh no, Marylou is at the HIMSS conference, right? This Healthcare Information Managers System Society." And I was like, "Oh, okay." So I called the next person, and and I get them on the phone. I'm like, "Hey, Bob, you're not at the HIMSS conference?" And I picked up that little nugget, and then I sounded like an insider, right? Because I knew about the conference, and I knew it was now, because I was blocking my time, and just that one little thing helped differentiate me, and we had a better conversation. So, because you had too many times, just in our lives in general, I think we're too scattered and fragmented. And so I love the idea of this blocking the time and just stick with it, right? And I mean, you mentioned timing too. Have you found a better or worse time of day to call?
It depends on your avatar, your persona that we talked about before. What you're going to do is you're going to take these blocks and you're going to move them and shuffle them around depending on if you're talking to a leadership guy versus someone who's in IT, for example. They all are going to have different times of the day where they're going to be more likely in their office. So back to that calling list, if you're calling C-level, you probably want to go early a.m., lunchtime, or late p.m. Mm-hmm. If you're calling IT, more than likely it's going to be later in the day since a lot of the IT folks are night owls. So again, you have to study your person. You have to really know their day in the life. And that gets incorporated into your calling sequences and your actual calling list when you do your block time.
Right. And how much can technology help? Or is it still a very much a one-on-one versus one-to-many type world?
I think technology can really help when you think about the volume of records that you're dealing with. So if you have a lot of records and you get a lot of leads, or you have just this huge list, you're going to want to use technology as much as possible for that tier of accounts that are not in that sweet spot, that upper right-hand quadrant of high probability of closing and high revenue value. Mm-hmm. The higher value and the higher the revenue, typically that's going to dictate more personalization. That's one area. The other thing that dictates more personalization, the one-on-one, is where they are in their relative position in your pipeline. Are you just starting out and trying to get someone to raise a fingernail, or are you actually working on qualifying them or finding out if they're a good fit or trying to get that first or book that first meeting? That's further into the pipeline. So by definition, you're going to be more personalized, but you can still leverage technology to help you even become personalized.
Right. Do you have any favorite tools or technology?
Not really. There's so much out there that I'm more a fan of doing the planning first to get the function that works for you, And then from there, you can select the tools that correlate best to your function, the way you function. Just to name a tool is not going to help you because it's going to force you to throw your business model into that tool. But what you really want is the tool to complement your business model. And that's the way tools are supposed to work.
Planning. What? Are you really a salesperson? There ain't no planning. I mean, I might plan like to bring a flask with me. I mean, goodness gracious. After that, Comedy Central, throw a little zingers out there, close the sale, right? Right.
There are no students in my class who use the word winging it. It's not allowed.
Do you wing them, huh? Do you clip them?
It's all process and planning as much as possible, knowing that there's outliers here and there, but for the most part, the 80-20 rule comes into effect.
Yeah, that's, my 7 deadly sins of selling. Number 1 is anti-Oakley-itis, shooting from the hip.
Yep.
That'll kill you pretty fast and pretty certain.
Indeed.
Okay, so my final question I've started asking is, imagine our listeners are jogging, they're on a plane, they're riding their bike, they can't take notes, they can't do anything except listen to our very soothing voices. You are getting very sleepy. You will send out your credit card. I'm sorry. So they can't do anything. But when they get to their desk, when they can do something, as a result of listening to this, what should they do? What's the first thing they should do to increase their chances, their odds of growing their sales today, this week, this year?
Well, since you asked a lot about the telephone, it sounds like I've done a couple webinars. One is called the 7 habits or healthy habits for booking first meetings.
Okay.
I would recommend that they search for 7 Habits or Marylou Tyler 7 Habits, and you'll see some webinars. The other thing that's cool about that is I include a question document, my favorite questioning document, that deals with the different levels of awareness that people are in, from unaware to totally aware of your product and service, and what questions that I like to ask to try to figure out where they are in that state of awareness. Mm-hmm. And also I have a download of the call planning forms and all the things I use in order to prepare for that block time we talked about.
Right. All right. And I will, because I'm a good guy, I will do a search and I will include that link in the show notes, because that's the kind of guy I am.
Yeah, and then there's also on my website, maryloutyler.com/swag, SWAG, is a listing of all the stuff that I've done relative to the new release of that book. And that 7 Habits is in there as well.
Gotcha. All right, so we will have that listed as well.
That's perfect.
All right. Thank you, ma'am. Marylou Tyler, author of Predictable Revenue and now Predictable Prospecting, all the way from sunny, wasp-ridden Des Moines, Iowa. Thanks for coming on the Sales Podcast. It's been awesome.
Thank you for having me. I enjoyed it tremendously. See you soon.
Okay. Did you get all that? She had some great advice on when to go more personal, when to leverage technology, how to get into the minds of your prospects, how to blend voicemails as part of your 10 to 12 touches. How do you use cliffhangers? Have you ever even thought about it? Why does your favorite TV show always have these cliffhangers, right? Even ESPN. Hey, what happened here? Did he break the high score? Did he get elected to the Hall of Fame? We'll answer that right after the break. So those are cliffhangers. You can do those. And I love the fact she talks about you don't need to do a ton of research, 15 to 30 minutes a day. If you find yourself doing more than that, then you're procrastinating, you're scared, you're afraid of the phone, you're afraid of engaging, you're afraid of getting objections, you're afraid of being rejected. And if any of those are your issue, then join us in the Make Every Sale program, makeeverysale.com. I have sold stocks and bonds, I have sold retail, I have sold real estate, I've sold high tech, I've sold $1 million to Google, I've sold $635,000 in consulting and training to Dell, I've sold $15 books to the person sitting across the table from me. I've sold from the stage, delivered keynotes in Vegas to hundreds of people. I've done it. And I share with you everything I've done, everything that's worked, everything that hasn't worked. and you get lifetime access for one price. So if any of these things resonated with you in this session, in this episode of the Sales Podcast, check out what Marylou is up to. You can get the notes and the links to everything we discussed at thesaleswhisperer.com/session 231. And then you can enroll in the Make Every Sale course at makeeverysale.com. Thanks for listening. Please be sure to share this, give some comments, give me a 5-star review. It helps me get the word out, helps this spread. And the more people that listen, the more people that end up signing up for different things that I offer. And it helps me keep the podcast free and consistent so I can give more to all of you. All right? So thanks for listening. And remember to sell different.